All right. Well, welcome to the Westlaw workshop today, where we're going to be talking about some tips on breaking down and using cases on Westlaw. Again, for those of you who I haven't met virtually or in person, my name is Mark Frangillo. I'm the Westlaw Academic Account Manager at your school. And before I get into the actual substantive part of the session, I wanted to point out a couple of maps that will aid in your understanding of reporters and federal jurisdictions. When you're on the law school portal, again, lawschool.tr.com or lawschool.thomsonreuters.com, if you scroll to the bottom, you're going to see that you have access to a federal court and a regional reporter's map. They are interactive in the sense that, if you wanted to take a look at any of the states in a particular circuit, I click on New York, it's going to jump me into Westlaw and let me search New York state and federal cases. Keep in mind, as you're learning the different circuits, something like this, you might want to bookmark and use. It just makes it a little bit easier to understand, particularly as you're delving into precedential versus, mandatory versus persuasive authority. But for the remaining portion of this short workshop, what I'm going to talk about are some of the tips on reading and utilizing cases on Westlaw. I am recording this for those who were unable to attend. I had a couple of students ask me to record the session. First and foremost, when you pull up a case on Westlaw, at least on your passwords, by default, you're going to see an outline or a table of contents on the left-hand side. Now, in the past, this was actually really a nice way of knowing where you were in the opinion. In particular, it sort of reduced the risk of you citing part of a case that was not the majority opinion, i.e., it reduced the risk of you citing to if there were a concurring and or dissenting opinion. Now that risk has really been negated, because on Westlaw, whenever you were in either the concurrence or the dissenting portion of a case, you can clearly see that it's going to be either outlined in like a dark blue or purple if it's a concurrence, and in red if it's a dissent. So in that respect, if you're someone like me who wants as much real estate as possible when you're reading documents, you can hide the table of contents. It's not really going to be something that you have to worry about citing to the concurring or dissenting portion of a case. Likewise, this full screen button kind of hides some of those links and tabs at the top. And if you wanted to, I got to move this to actually show you. Exit full screen, takes you back and displays those links and the browsing bar information. So a couple of things you can do to really give yourself a little extra room. Speaking of links, you're going to see a number of links going across the top of the screen. But before I get into those, I do want to point out that whenever you're looking at a case on Westlaw, we're going to give you the official and any parallel citations at the very top of the screen. We'll also give you an approximation of how many pages this case is if you printed it or downloaded it or emailed it. But right below the citation information, some of these links are going to come into play, particularly when you are researching your open memos. Some of you are going to be doing closed memos in a few weeks, where they're going to hand you all of the content. They're not going to want you to do research outside of the cases, and or if they give you a statute and or the statute they give you. But once you are out there doing research on your own, you really are going to want to utilize some of these links. The first of which is a filings link. And what that's going to do for us is collect all of the filings, all of the pleadings, motions, memos, and briefs associated with that case. So rather than you having to run a search looking for the petitioner or respondent or amicus briefs, we actually do the work for you. And if you're looking at a case, whether it's a state case or a federal case, and there is content behind that filings link, you are going to want to start to read those motions, memos, and briefs, because it gives you a much more complete picture of the case. Rather than just simply reading the court's opinion, if you could see the arguments both sides made before the court rendered or issued its decision, you're going to have a much more complete picture. The next 3 links, we're not going to go into a lot of detail on the next 3 links, but those are your key site links. And KeyCite is a citator on Westlaw, and it answers 3 different questions. Question number 1, is my case good law? Well, I'm going to look to negative treatment to answer that question. Question 2, how did my case proceed through the courts? You look to history. And question 3, has my document been cited and or relied upon and or analyzed by any other documents? Well, if you want to answer that question, you go to citing references. With respect to that first question, is my case good law? Bush v. Gore is good. It has a yellow flag, and you're going to learn much more about this later, but there are various flags and markers associated with cases, statutes, and regulations. In fact, if you click the KeyCite powered by KeyCite symbol here, it gives you a legend and explains what all the flags and markers mean. But quite simply, a yellow flag means your case is good law, but it does have some negative references to it. So Bush v. Gore, it's still good. There are 83 negative references. Those negative references could range from a case that criticized or disagreed with this case, all the way down to a case that simply distinguished itself on the facts from your case. It's negative, but not rising to the level of invalidating your case. And a nice little time saver we give you is that the most negative reference to your case is always displayed right above the name of your case here. So the most negative thing said about Bush v. Gore was out of the 6th Circuit, and that particular court in Stewart v. Blackwell recognized that there was a lot of disagreement out there surrounding Bush v. Gore. But again, nothing has risen. Obviously, the Supreme Court would be the only court that could do it. Nothing that the Supreme Court has done in 20 years has invalidated this particular case. History. This is actually something I wanted to show you right now, quite simply because it's a nice feature, especially depending on who your civil procedure professor is. They're famous for asking you questions about how a case proceeded through the courts. Well, if you pull up a case on Westlaw and click history, it's going to give you the appellate history associated with the case. Everything from how it started down in the trial court to how it got all the way up, in this instance, to the US Supreme Court, and anything in between. So that's something that could be useful right now. And again, I'll go into much more detail on something like that in a later session. Citing references. As I said, that's going to give you a list of every single document that ever cited to, analyzed, or followed Bush v. Gore. There are over 5,800 documents total. 488 of them are cases. And oh yeah, by the way, one of the things we'll learn later, we can actually filter this content. So we could filter by jurisdiction, date, the type of discussion these cases afforded our case, even which issues these cases discussed from our particular case. And the final link that you're going to see is Table of Authorities. That quite simply is just going to give us an alphabetical list of every case that the Bush v. Gore court relied upon when they issued the decision. Okay, so those are the links you see at the top. Next thing I just wanted to touch on were a couple of really big time savers. And if you attended the intro classes I gave the last couple of weeks, you're already familiar with the synopsis and the head notes. This is where we have expert editors. They're called head note editors. They read each and every case, will paraphrase, provide a summary of the case for us called the synopsis. The synopsis, as you may know, is just simply a summary of the facts, the issue, and the black letter law, the holding in the decision itself. Why start here? Well, rather than reading all 47 pages, if I read the synopsis and I know this case has nothing to do with what I'm researching, I move on to a different case. Next time saver are going to be your head notes. Head notes, quite simply, summarize every issue and dispute in the case. This case has 10 head notes, 10 issues. The first head note deals with the main topic, United States. The subtopic is presidential electors. Here's a summary of that particular issue. Issue number 2 is an election law issue. Issue 4 is a con law issue, as well as an election law issue. So this particular blurb has been classified to the main topic, constitutional law, subtopic, election, voting, and political rights in general, as well as the main topic, election law, subtopic, nature and source of right. So the point I want to make here is that sometimes your head notes, these blurbs, get indexed to multiple topics and subtopics within what we call the West topic and key number system. Every single head note from every single case resides somewhere in this gigantic index. And if you haven't been introduced to it yet, the West Digest or topic and key number system is really just a gigantic index of all American case law. It currently has over 450 main topics, election law being one of them. And that topic happens to be on an alphabetical list, topic number 142T. That's all that number means. So it currently has over 450 main legal topics and over 100,000 subtopics. So this particular issue, let's just say that head note number 6 that's talking about the right to vote, essentially. That's what that particular issue encapsulates. That specific issue has been classified to the topic election law, topic number 142T, subtopic Roman numeral 3, voters, 3A, voters in general, right of suffrage, and then the subtopic under that is key number 42, right to vote effectively. If this were the issue that you were researching, one click on that final number would retrieve every single case from any jurisdiction classified to that minute point of law. One of the things that you're going to learn is that, and if you've done research on these systems already, you may know that you could do a relevance ranked search at the very top, a Boolean search called terms and connectors. But even though those are good search methods, as good as I think I am at searching by keyword, if I'm researching cases and I land on a really good head note that is classified to a topic and key number I'm interested in, this is still the single best way of getting every case from any jurisdiction on that specific point of law. And that's something you're going to learn at a later date. I just wanted to sort of introduce the digest to you at this point. And by the way, if there are questions, feel free to chat in the window. And by the way, before I forget, speaking of chat, you all know that you're getting a gift card for attending this session. Make sure you click that link that I added to the chat window. That is going to give me the ability to order the $5 Amazon gift cards later on today. All right, so back to the head notes. Head note number 6, really good head note, deals exactly with what I'm researching. One drawback, I can't simply copy and use this language in a memo or brief. However, if I click the number 6, it takes me into this case where I can read what the court said and maybe copy and use this language. And speaking of copying and using the language, if you click and drag with your left mouse button, once you release the button, you're going to see, let me just pull that up again. You're going to see you have a number of different choices. I could save this blurb to a folder that I've previously created. I could highlight this blurb, or I could highlight and add a note. And the really cool thing about highlights and notes, when I decide to print, download, or email, I have the ability to have Westlaw deliver just the document or the document and my work product as well, i.e. any notes or highlights I've added. The other really cool thing that I wanted to point out is that, and this is going to be a tip that's going to help you a lot when you are researching your open memo. If I wanted to use this language in a memo or brief, I could click and drag with my left mouse button. And if I select copy with reference standard, that's going to copy that quote in Blue Book format. If you were at a school using Allwood, you could copy this quote in Allwood format. You just want to make sure you change that. But I'm going to keep it set to Blue Book. You'll see that it copied the text. And now when I paste, I get the quote in the pinpoint citation. By the way, does everyone see that screen? Just want to make sure it's still displaying. Did everyone see the word screen that I popped up? Just do me a favor and chat in. Okay, thanks, Karina. Andrew, thank you. Okay. All right, so it gives you the quote and the pinpoint citation. That's going to be a big time saver when you start doing your open memos. Final couple of tips. One of the other things I want you to be aware of as you're going through a case is that, and this is something we do for you to make sure you're not citing something from a case that's bad. I already touched on yellow flags for cases. A yellow flag means your case is good, but it does have some negative references. A red flag means one of two things, that your case was either reversed on appeal or a case outside the appellate chain has invalidated at least one of the issues in your case. So one of the things that we do on Westlaw, you're going to see as you're reading through a case, if your case was either directly overruled or indirectly overruled, indirect overruled would be an orange marker, it's going to have a red flag next to it so that you don't make the mistake of citing something that is no longer good law. We're going to just sort of give you that warning right in the case itself. And that will be true if you cited to a statute or regulation that is also no longer good. But the other thing that I wanted to leave you with is you might be wondering what these green numbers mean, or the little triangle, the green triangle with a single star 110 and the green triangle with a double star 533. Those represent the page breaks in the official reporter if it's a single star, in the unofficial reporter if it's a double star. So what is the official and what is the unofficial? Well, we look at the top. So the official reporter for the Supreme Court, U.S. reports. The unofficial reporter, one of them anyway, is the Supreme Court reporter. So everything to the right and below that single star 110 is page 110 in the U.S. reports. Everything to the right and below the 533, the double star 533, is page 533 in the unofficial reporter, the Supreme Court reporter. Okay? questions on that? All right, that is